Just Energy Transition is to reduce inequality, to shift costs onto wealthy polluters, and to prioritize economic and racial, to minimize rather, economic, racial, and gender injustice. You, to me, represent eagles. You are flying together. You're coming back to South Africa in the same territory, saying, let's build for our future generations. And so, yes, JET may be Just Energy Transition for the Municipal Conference, but to me, I say, let's look at it for the next 2 days as Journey Eagles Thrive. And with that, I welcome you to this conference. Now, to officially open up the Municipal Conference, I'd like to please call onto stage Councillor Billy Sophie.
And municipal managers, acting officers present at this event, Presidential Climate Commission leadership, captains of industry, staff members of government, departments, Salga leadership led by the CEO, parastatals, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of South African Local Government Association and the whole family of its member municipalities, we express our appreciation for this important gathering today. It comes at a pivotal time as COP28 has set a clear global objectives that emphasize the critical role of local government in leading climate actions. Local government are essential to implement the measures outlined in the COP28 resolution, which stress the need for inclusive and equitable participation across all sectors in the fight against climate change. This gathering is crucial as it potentially marks the beginning of a serious journey of strategic intergovernmental cooperation towards transforming the municipal energy sector as part of South African broader climate change response. We're fully aware that the energy transition is a matter of survival for humanity in response to climate change and a matter of survival for us as a country. Failure to transition in line with the global community, as COP28 highlighted, will have fatal consequences for our socio-economic development, livelihoods, and lives. Failure in this case is not an option to all of us. COP28 reaffirms that local government must be at the forefront of climate action. Local municipalities are the closest to the communities most affected by climate impacts, such as droughts, floods, and extreme weather conditions. Therefore, they are uniquely positioned to drive climate resilience and adaptation strategies. But in our context, success will not be achievable if we do not cooperate in earnest and hold each other's hand throughout this journey. It is therefore my privilege to say a few things in this meeting. The transition will entail significant transformational agenda across all sectors of the economy and socio-economic development. However, the transition will have both upsides and downsides. which must be equally distributed across society, economic classes, and communities. If not proactively managed, much like climate changes itself, the transition could severely impact the livelihoods of the poor and vulnerable. Among those vulnerable communities are municipality institutions themselves. The Just Transition, emphasized as priority at COP28, underlines that this transition must be inclusive, leaving no one behind. For South Africa, this means that the energy transition must not exacerbate inequalities or push vulnerable communities into further hardships. Local government plays a central role in ensuring that JET is not just a theoretical framework, but a practical solution that empowers communities, creates jobs, and fosters inclusive economic growth. However, if the transition is not properly managed, it could decimate local government with devastating consequences for socio-economic development and the livelihood of our communities. South Africa could bear the brunt of negative impacts from the global transition while missing out on potential benefits. Honorable President and honorable ministers in this meeting, in the electricity sector, many of the decisions expressed in our policies and legislations have made it extremely difficult for municipalities to fulfill their mandates. The country's municipal fiscal framework was designed with the expectation that municipalities will fund themselves 90% of their mandate through local raised revenues, of which electricity distribution revenue would constitute more than a third. However, due national government intervention, about 60% of electricity distribution is performed by Eskom, leading to a significant revenue loss for municipalities. Furthermore, municipalities' attempts to engage Eskom in credit control measures have been refused, contributing to a ballooning municipal debt, which currently stands at 347 billion at the end of March 2024. This creates a vicious cycle where municipality struggles to collect revenue, yet Eskom demands payments without supporting municipality in the debt recovery. The Electricity Regulating Amendment Act poses a new challenge. A clause inserted into the bill after the public participation process and signed into law threatens to remove a significant portion of municipalities' remaining electricity distribution functions. Salga has repeatedly implored both Parliament and the President to reconsider this clause. We hope the effective date of the bill will exclude this clause. As failure to do so, many undermine the very purpose of our discussion today, the municipal energy transition. As noted in the Just Transition Investment Plan, local government is a critical sector that must transition. The plan estimates that 320 billion will be required over 5 years to support this transition. Without the necessary resources, local government will be unable to contribute to South African transition in line with the global communities. A failure that COP28 could have devastating consequences for nations like ours. Honorable President and honorable ministers, today the transition bus is approaching the local government station. We hope that the bus is big enough to allow local government to get in. It is not enough to expect local government to follow behind with limited resources and no clear path. 2028 reiterates the need for collaborations and inclusivity. We urge you to bring a bus that allows local government family to be part of the journey, determining the route and the speed together. The reality of climate change is undeniable. South Africa has witnessed severe droughts, floods, and extreme heat events, which have caused massive damage to municipal infrastructure. ecosystem. The livelihoods, those impacts only reinforce the necessity of transitioning our local economies and municipal functions to reduce vulnerable to both climate changes and global responses. The growth of renewable energy sectors presents significant opportunity for municipalities. By committing to renewable energy, municipality can attract investment from national and international sources. As highlighted by COP28, diversification our energy mix will also improve the energy security and reduce our reliance on fossil fuel, aligning with COP28 goal of achieving global climate. Our vision must be to create an enabling environment for local government to embrace a transition towards a sustainable energy pathway while thriving economically and socially. Local government, as recognized by different spheres of government, should be at the heart of South Africa and climate change, climate action, and the just transition agenda. This will have profound implications for the future imperativeness of the municipal economies and the livelihood of our citizens. Together, by aligning our goals as all spheres of government and stakeholders, we stand a good chance to position ourselves as leaders in this global green transition, while ensuring that our communities benefit from a fair and inclusive energy future. As I conclude, the journey towards a just energy transition is both a challenge and an opportunity. It requires thoughtful planning, collaboration deliberately, and commitment to equity and inclusivity. Thank you for your dedication to this vital cause. Together, we can shape a brighter, greener future for our communities and set a positive example for the future. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Some really key words: journeying together, building for our country. I get the privilege of being on many stages, but nothing gives me more honor than to see all of us collaborating to build our beautiful country of South Africa. Now, before we continue, just a few housekeeping rules. Please note that there's no smoking allowed in the rooms. The restrooms are just outside that way on to the right. We also do have some live streaming that's taking place, so if we could please keep the noise level as low as possible in the room so that those that are joining us online are then able to hear us. We're not expecting any fire drill, but in case there is a fire drill, we will then announce on what to do next. We now move on to our next speaker, who's going to actually introduce our distinguished guest. So please help me warmly welcome to the podium the Minister of Electricity and Energy for the Republic of South Africa, Dr. Cyril Ramaphosa.
Thank you very much, Tammy, Ms. Nkadimeng. Let me take the opportunity to recognize the Minister of COGTA, Minister Hlabisa, the Deputy Minister, Dr. Masemola, and other Deputy Ministers that are here, and also the President of Salga, Mr. Stofile, and your esteemed Executive Committee of Salga, Executive Mayors, Councillors present here, Excellency Ambassadors, City Managers, Municipal Managers, and everyone here in your eminence. This is an important topic, and the President has taken stewardship of this conversation and how we're going to characterize, interpret, and also explain the issue of just energy transition. Just the other day, the President hosted the just energy transition with an emphasis on the financing of this transition. Today we are here, the President is hosting again this conversation, but now the focus is on its implications on municipalities and municipal spaces. I'm making this point just to illustrate that the intention by the President is to ensure that we democratize the conversation. We are able to nuance it and give it South African characteristics. So it's not a conversation for smoke-filled boardrooms, but it's got local traction. And the best way of ensuring that we are able to domesticate this conversation is to have a discussion with the local government leaders and practitioners. And that's why we are assembled in the manner that we are today, for us to be able to broaden that conversation. We do accept that at an international level, the issue of just transition, the energy complex, as they define it, seeks to address a trilemma. First of energy access, and it's got two components. It's availability, and we know now the manifestations of that availability in the South African context is a new issue of what we call load reduction. So there are hours in the day where multitudes of our people, households, don't have access to electricity as a result of load reduction. And that manifests itself downstream of the electricity value chain at the municipal level. So this conversation must help us to confront that question and see how best we can resolve it. The second component of energy access is that of affordability. Electricity prices have increased about 600% since 2006. That situation is untenable, has got a disproportionate impact on the poor. And that's why the President has occasioned this conversation, so that we are able to get it from, as it were, the horse's mouth, so that as we fashion a South African version of what we mean by just energy transition, is able to take account of all these questions. The second anchor of that trilemma is the issue of energy security, our ability to meet the future demand, allow the economy to grow, whilst making businesses competitive, and also ensuring that low-income households have access to affordable energy, electricity, and the rest of us have got electricity that is cost-reflective. And of course, the third anchor is on the ecological and environmental dimensions of this energy trilemma. And I guess that for the South African context, there's an issue of the socio-economic dimension. So we should be talking really, if you come to think of it, of a quadrilemma. And that's why it's important that we have this conversation. And like I said, the President has invested time to ensure that we have this conversation. And as I conclude, just to say that perhaps there's a need for us to rethink what is the question we are trying to resolve. So I guess that should just go beyond the trilemma. But we are trying to resolve the nexus of energy, water, food, and climate change. And all of these things find expression at the local government level. So like I said, the President has taken stewardship of this. The President has, on countless occasions, international platforms, articulated on the part, not just of our country, not just of the region and the continent, but of developing countries, on some of the dimensions that requires attention in this conversation of the just energy transition. So we really want to appreciate the leadership that is provided by the President. And I must emphasize that in our last cabinet meeting, a point was made that Minister Hlabisa must pull all relevant ministers, electricity, water, roads, engage with the local government to see how we resolve the challenges in the local government space. And I guess that this is but one of the many variables that requires our collective attention. So having said that, please join me in inviting the President to come and share with us the perspective of how we can find each other at the local government level to ensure that we are able to articulate the South African version of what we mean by just energy transition. It must be nuanced, have South African characteristics, and the President has taken leadership. Let me invite President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa to come and share with us. Please help me to welcome the President to the stage.
Thank you. Let's be seated, please. Program Director, Minister of Energy and Electricity, Dr. Cyril Ramaphosa, Minister SABC, Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Deputy Ministers who are here present, the President of South African Local Government Association, Councillor Beki Stofile, mayors who are present here, and members of the diplomatic corps, representatives of finance institutions, and I see many of them, and even as I entered, I could smell money. I could feel it, so it's wonderful that you're all here, and representatives of municipalities, labor, business and civil society, and all guests and ladies and gentlemen. As I woke up this morning, I asked myself a number of questions on whether I should wear these glasses again or not. As my eye has been getting a lot better, and many people, including a TV announcer as I walked in, as I asked, "What do you see in my eye, and do I wear them or not?" He said, "No, don't wear them, Mr. President." So I've been advised not to put them on, although many people said, "President, it rather makes you look cool." So I've been postulating over this like a number of years ago when I went to a function where they had said, wear African clothing and all that, the dashikis and all that. So I wore one, which had a pants and a tunic, which went right up to below my knees. So I had to go to the restroom. When I got to the restroom, I looked at the place where we usually all have to visit every day. I asked myself, what do I do now? Do I stand or sit? So this morning I asked myself similar questions. What do I do? Do I wear these glasses or not? But it's a real joy to be here. And it's a real pleasure for me, as this is the inaugural conference on the role of municipalities in our country's just energy transition. We have embraced a just energy transition, a journey that indeed, as our program director, Tami Nkadimeng, has said, we are on a journey. Rapid, sustainable, and inclusive economic growth is, as we all know, the central priority of the government of national unity. And low-carbon, climate-resilient development is central to achieving this inclusive growth. This presents our country with a challenge, but it also presents us with an opportunity, and a great opportunity at that. Electricity generated from fossil fuels accounts for most of our country's carbon emissions. Because industry is still mainly reliant on power that is produced by Eskom's coal-fired power stations, our entire economy is therefore carbon intensive. As the world changes, and it is changing, our reliance on fossil fuels to industrialize poses a significant risk for our country. It poses threats to our economy, our society, and our environment. if we do not drive the energy transition in ways that are appropriate to our national and local circumstances. Many of South Africa's main trading partners are taking measures to achieve net zero within certain time frames. And those partners, and some of whom even have companies that are located here, already go public as they boast that we have now reached net zero emissions, even as we produce the goods that we are peddling around. And that puts pressure on us. This has implications for South African goods and products entering these markets, as we have come to know. Because for as long as we ourselves don't embark on this journey, as we produce our goods with fossil-intensive energy, when they reach their destination or their market, they will impose tariffs on us and therefore making our goods uncompetitive. It does also have implications for our economic competitiveness, as I said. Just as we continue to oppose unilateral and cohesive carbon adjustment measures by developed countries, we realize ourselves the need to reduce our own reliance on carbon-intensive energy production. We do see the need to diversify our energy to grow our economy. There are great prospects ahead if our country takes advantage of the global energy transition to support our own economic growth and development, more particularly employment creation. As a signatory to the Paris Agreement, South Africa is committed to contributing its own fair share to the global climate change effort. We must pursue this commitment in a way that delivers just outcomes for those affected by the energy transitions. And those are our people. We must pursue it in a way that contributes to inclusive economic growth, to energy security, as Minister Ramaphosa was saying, and ultimately to ensure that as we transit, our people are not left behind, and that we create employment. And we must do so at a pace as well as at a scale and cost that is consistent with our country's social and economic development path. But what is certain is that we've got to embark on this journey. Our integrated resource plan sets out a viable energy mix over the medium and long term to achieve our decarbonization objectives. We have a successful renewable energy independent power producer procurement program, and this program has attracted well over 200 billion rand in investment, and it has added much needed capacity to our electricity grid. At a time when Eskom was facing and continues to face enormous challenges, the regulatory changes we introduced in 2021 to increase the licensing threshold for generation projects has resulted in a pipeline of over 130 confirmed projects. This amounts to approximately 22,000 megawatts of capacity with an estimated investment value of some 390 billion rand. Now, this is an enormous amount of money which you don't pick up in the street at any given time. And that is why It's wonderful to have financiers and investors here at this conference. And it is for this reason that I said I could smell money as I walked in, because this speaks to the amount of money that is going to be needed for this project to go ahead. Municipalities, therefore, are central to our efforts to decarbonize the energy sector. Municipalities own and operate approximately half of South Africa's electricity distribution grid, and they facilitate universal access to electricity. 165 municipalities are electricity service providers themselves. Through the Independent National Electrification Program grant, municipalities are responsible also for addressing the electrification backlog. Municipalities therefore need to be in the driving seat when it comes to providing clean, affordable energy to communities, to businesses, and to industries that operate in their localities. One of the aims of this conference is to unlock the institutional arrangements required to drive the decarbonization effort. The Just Energy Transition Implementation Plan, which was approved by Cabinet last year, includes a dedicated municipal portfolio roadmap. There are 3 areas of focus in this regard. The first is providing access to affordable clean energy. And Minister Ramaphosa, as well as the President of Salga, spoke quite eloquently about this. Municipalities are now able to purchase power directly from independent power producers, and they are able to establish their own power producing entities as well. I recently signed the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act into law. Now, I can understand that Salga, and as articulated by the President of Salga, they would like some exceptions to be inserted, and they would like further talking to happen, particularly perhaps when implementation then begins. The Act itself paves the way for a new and competitive electricity market. The reforms contained in the law must help to speed up the decarbonization process, but more than that, they must result in a better deal for households and for businesses. The national climate change effort must not come at a higher cost for electricity users. The South African households, like many around the world, are battling and reeling from the rising cost of living, including the cost of energy. You just need to open overseas newspapers and you will find that people are raising issues about the cost of energy in many countries. We must therefore ensure that the energy transition does not contribute to energy poverty. It must not deepen inequality that is so rife and so much a part of people, the life of our people in South Africa. The free basic electricity subsidy for indigent households is one of the most important policies we have implemented to tackle poverty since the advent of democracy. In a number of municipalities, it is not being used to good effect, and we continue to call on municipalities to join the effort of reducing the levels of poverty amongst our people by implementing the indigent policy. It will be important to sustain and expand this support during the Just Energy Transition and ensure that many poor households benefit from this subsidy. We will need to deal with challenging issues like electricity pricing structures and the staggering levels of municipal debt that is owed to Eskom. The second area of focus is the issue of sustainable financing for electricity infrastructure. The municipal grid systems need to be upgraded, and they need to be modernized and also to be extended as a number of people keep thronging to our towns, to our cities, and coverage therefore needs to be properly extended. The energy generation of the future requires systems that are fundamentally different in terms of design, in terms of capability and operation. The technology that has come to the fore is such that we must embrace it even as we address the challenges of grid capacity. Smart metering will have to accommodate the increased penetration of renewable energy at different scales. It will need, in the end, to facilitate wheeling and feed in by small-scale embedded generation. Massive investment is needed to ensure optimal grid control, grid safety, and energy storage as well. This investment will need to draw on both public and private sources of capital. As government, we are working on financing solutions that will include, yes, straight plain vanilla loans, but also concessional loans for the National Transmission Company of South Africa to expand the grid. And as we will have heard in the past, we do need to expand the grid by almost 14,000 kilometers. A system for private sector investment is in development. We are extending and expediting the funding for investment-ready projects in all areas of the just energy transition. And we are also putting in institutional arrangements in place so that as this happens, we have strong institutions that will be able to deal with whatever shocks and different approaches that may occur. I am told that this conference will confirm the establishment of the Just Energy Transition Municipal Forum, as well as its secretariat. National government is rallying its teams to work with Salga and mayors to align on the JET program of action for local government. This, for us, is an area of focus, and we are approaching this from a number of angles and dimensions. And it is also for this reason that Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs is here, as well as the Minister of Energy and Electricity. And indeed, we also will need the full participation of the Minister of Environmental Affairs as well, so that together we are able to find ways of supporting local government and ensuring that local government is strengthened. This is one of the key priorities of the government of national unity, to focus in this seventh administration on strengthening local government and paying close attention to what happens in local government. And electricity being one of the key revenue earners for local government, it is important that national government should support, should assist, and stand behind local government in this important area. Now, this obviously is going to require extensive collaboration, extensive discussion, but more importantly, it will also require extensive training and upskilling, but also the sharing of experience. And another important aspect is also benchmarking amongst ourselves as local government in the country and ex-country as well, to see how others have done it, but more importantly, to rely on the good performance or good execution of others in our own country, so that we should never be afraid as local government to go and learn what other local government entities in our own country are doing better. So it is for this reason that national government has fully embraced this task of assisting and supporting our local government in all aspects of their own enterprises, but also specifically in the just energy transition. New systems will be required to identify human resource, technical capacity, and other needs within municipalities, and to plan and budget accordingly. And I want to say to our municipalities, help is available, it's always at hand. And the national government, just for starters, with all these 3 departments I've spoken about, and many more, we will be able to give this help and assistance. Municipalities will need to adopt best practice when it comes to the design and implementation of programs as well as projects. Now, by best practice, colleagues, I mean that we must do the best of the best. And I'd like to say that, the days of mediocrity, the days of doing things just because we have to do them and end up with sub-optimum results are over. They must be over for us as a nation. Our people expect us to do the best. Our people expect the best that we can do for them, because indeed they are the best themselves inherently. So therefore, it is important that as we traverse this path, as we embark on this journey, we must do the best, and therefore relying on best practice is what we should have a clearer focus on. And just for starters, I've appointed really streetwise ministers in all these areas, really streetwise. Their eyes are wide open, and as you listen to them talking, you can hear that, these guys and these girls know what they are talking about. So let's take a leaf from that book and do the very best. Last week I was in Ekurhuleni for a presidential imbizo as part of the district development model. One of the objectives of the district development model is localized development that is directly responsive to community needs. We want to move away from parachuted development initiatives where projects are conceptualized at another level outside those environments and don't take into account the realities on the ground. We need to be particularly aware of this when it comes to the just energy transition. Our people are not only tech savvy, as I often say, but our people are development savvy. When they see development, they want not only to participate, to be part of it so that they can own it themselves, but they also want to get so engaged in the development because it is about them and for them. So therefore, as we do all these things, let us take care to ensure that we bring our people along. If certain products, services are not available in the local area. That needs to be discussed, that needs to be explained, so that even as we go X the area, we are then able to get proper buy-in from our people. What we work in one locality, of course, may not be feasible in another. So in the end, we've got to fully understand the terrain in which we are executing projects. Besides upgrading and expanding the grid infrastructure, we should ask ourselves what other realities will we need to take into account, and how will this new infrastructure be protected from vandalism, from criminality, and how will we continue to maintain it? These are all the important variables that we need, in fact, factors that we need to look at. Because quite often we install a public infrastructure facility, and more often than not, we expect it to function and we walk away, we don't maintain. And later we pay a great cost in maintaining. But these days, if we just parachute projects in and the community does not own them, vandalization becomes one of the things that befall those projects. Yes, there is also the challenge that we have to deal with, what we have witnessed as a challenge with regard to the so-called business forums and mafias, be they construction mafias or otherwise. These are challenges that we have to deal with. Now, quite often we expect that there should just be a one-dimensional solution, and that is just law and order. And yet, there are multiplicity of dimensions that we need to look at, multiplicity of solutions that also need to be organic. The community engagement, the community information gathering. Yes, the police and community policing forums need to be so well attuned to what is happening. And when communities work together as a cohesive unit, we are able to deal with all this. We are able to get public infrastructure well protected. We are able to ensure that even those who have ill intent can actually be ferreted out and can, in the end, be dealt with by our law enforcement agencies. So what we have to do is to focus on how we build communities. Communities also around energy. And as we transit to a just energy situation, we should have taken our people along with us, and they must feel that this is their project, this is their development. And we also need to look at how are we going to ensure that the rollout of the new energy sources at municipal level supports localization and local businesses. The unemployment rate is quite high, and we need, as South Africans, to increase local economic activity. In other countries, we often find that 60% to 70% of economic activity and drive is generated by small, even local enterprises. In our country, it's much lower than that. Therefore, with all the initiatives that we embarked on, whether they are sparked off by the public sector, whether they are initiated by the private sector, we need to focus on how do we localize? How do we get the local people involved? How do we get products that are made in the area? And how do we foster the empowerment process so that the women in the locality, the young people in the locality, those who can, including the disabled, feel that they are part of all this? And how do we inform communities through public campaigns in accessible and appropriate language about all these initiatives that we embark upon? Ladies and gentlemen, we have to embark on a number of initiatives as we take this journey of a just transition. The accompanying part of this journey must be focusing on localization, on our people, making sure that they are part of those processes. We have said that the transition to a low-carbon, climate-resilient economy and society must take the needs and the interests of affected communities into account. And in fact, these days, I can hardly think of either a corporate, even a government department that will just want to parachute itself into a community or local area without ensuring that there is full discussion with the various institutions and structures in the locality. And this is where the district development model kicks in and plays an important role, because what it does is to create a platform, a ready-made platform for engagement, a ready-made platform to foster development, and that is why we have dubbed it District Development Model. And this is not simply an issue of installing panels or meters or installing pylons. It is an issue that is very comprehensive, ensuring that there's economic development, there's job creation, but also there's real economic activity that can lead to benefits, yes, for both investors as well as for the people as a whole and the various corporates that can be involved. We must therefore reaffirm a transition that incorporates distributive, restorative, and procedural justice. And it is when we do this that people, including businesses in the locality, yes, including your bigger business, can see that there is justice, and we can foster justice. And even where problems arise with things like, corruption, overcharging or whatever, we're then able to have the wherewithal to tackle all these problems. We must maximize decarbonization and just energy investments by the private sector arising from the electricity sector reform. We must expand our electricity grid capacity as well. A just energy transition is about promoting economic diversification, transformation, and industrialization in the renewable energy sector that empowers communities, workers, also empowers businesses as a whole, and in the course of doing so, to empower those who were previously excluded from playing a role in the economy of their country. The achievement of defined just energy transition outcomes at a municipal level requires supportive policies, but it also requires leadership. It also, and underline this, it also requires good governance and a coordinated effort amongst all relevant institutions. What we will be building, and this is where I often say local government is the real engine of economic growth. When you look at the number of countries that have grown their economies, they grew their economies at the local level, and I often say investments don't happen at the union buildings. They happen at the local government level. And the energy transition gives us a great opportunity to be able to engender that economic growth that we so need. and it gives us a great platform to be able to address all the challenges from employment, from economic growth and development, right through to addressing the issues of women and young people. In this constrained fiscal environment, we need to make the most of existing resources. Citizens of our country must see that the just energy transition is working for them. Businesses must see that the just energy transition is indeed beneficial to their enterprises, whether they are small, medium, or big. Electricity must be affordable, but it must also be available and sustainable. And it will be sustainable as we address also the challenges of the grid. Costs must be managed, infrastructure must be maintained, services must be delivered reliably and consistently. And this is where local government plays a key role, because with the just energy transition, we are dealing with something that's highly technical, highly modernized, and this is where our own service delivery needs, to use a colloquial term, to be jacked up. It needs to be at a much higher level, focused on ensuring that we serve the people, we enable businesses to operate, and in the end, we focus with a hawk's eye type of attention on economic growth, where every local government says whatever we do, we're focusing on economic growth. And just as an aside, whenever I've looked at local government, I often say, but this is a business. Local government is a business, and we need to approach it in that way. Those who pay for services, even those who get free services like the indigent households, they are our customers. And we need to serve our customers with diligence and with modernity of new technologies, and in electricity and in renewable energy, that's what we will be dealing with. So this is the big challenge that we now face as local government, to improve our services. We've always heard of local government not being able to deliver good services to our people. The service delivery has been weak, with service delivery protests and service delivery failures. This gives us the opportunity to upgrade that and to demonstrate to all and sundry that indeed, as we transit to renewable energy, as we transit to this new era that's been opened up with this new entry of the law, we are able to now utilize new methods of doing things. We must leverage also the financing and support that has been pledged by a number of partners, but particularly our international partners and the private sector, to support municipalities. We need to leverage that. This has been one of the best ways in which we can engender cooperation between the public sector at local government level as well as the private sector. But to overlay on top of that the entry of the international community through their financing institutions is a great boon that we must rely on. Now, I look forward, colleagues, to the outcomes of this conference, and I think you have a great opportunity to engage in real development issues that affect your municipalities, the local government, where we need to engender real economic growth. But I'd like you to always remember my approach that economic growth, the job creation, must really be generated at that level. Our job as national government, yes, as well as provincial government, is to create that environment, to create that climate in which local economic development can be engendered, in which the private sector can make a contribution, in which your local government entities can really enable the private sector, including the public sector, to, in the end, contribute to the economic growth at the local level. Now, I am certain that you will be able, through this conference, to provide a clear pathway for our municipalities and also pave the way for sustainable solutions, because that is exactly what we need. I commend the Just Energy Transition Project Management Unit in the Presidency and the South African Local Government Association, Salga, for convening this conference. Now, as government, business, labor, and civil society, I do believe that it behoves on us to deepen our collaboration to achieve an energy future that is secure, but that is sustainable for all our people. And as always, focusing on leaving no one behind and advancing the interests of our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You can all be seated. We're just going to take an opportunity to have just a few photos taken. So I'm going to call up the respective people. If we can all still remain seated, we'll make it as swift as possible. We just want to make sure that we capture this moment for years to come. So if I could ask my president to please be upstanding.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I was actually going to tease you and say, do you want to put on the glasses now for the photos? Okay, so if we could please have you in the front, that'd be great. If I could please have all the ministers and deputy ministers in the room, if you could please make your way to stage for the first set of photos, and also the president of Salga. So that's the first set of photos. Thank you. Thank you. If I could please have Joanne Yawich and Rudy Dix just coming next to me and getting prepped to come on stage. Thank you so much. If the rest of the JET PMU team can get ready as swiftly as possible on the side of the stairs, please just get yourselves ready. Thank you very much. If the JET PMU team can please come on stage to join the leadership. Thank you.